en la trayectoria del camino de los hijos de Israel por el
On
desierto,
the path of the children of Israel journey through the wilderness,
siguiendo
they had to be following
la columna de
the
fuego,
pillar of fire,
la cual los estaba guiando
which was leading them
por medio del profeta Moisés,
by the prophet Moses,
y la señal
and the
que
sign
tenían
that they also had
en cuanto a continuar su
in
trayectoria.
terms of continuing their path or trajectory
La columna de fuego
was when the pillar of fire
se levantaba
would
del
rise
tabernáculo
from the
y
tabernacle
se movía.
and moved.
La columna de fuego
The pillar of fire had to be followed, which gave them light by night and by day when the cloud
esa nube que los
that covered them from the sun stopped.
pues ellos se detenían,
Well,
y cuando
they
seguía,
stopped.
pues había que seguir.
And when it continued, well, they had to continue.
No podían seguir
In other words, they could not continue on their own. They could not in the journey toward the promised land,
un orden establecido
but that everything had an order established by
de
God
la guianza
through the leadership of the Spirit of God, of the angel of the covenant in the midst of the Hebrew people,
pasado por
led by Moses.
y luego que se fue Moisés
And once Moses left,
siguió Dios obrando
God continued to work as he had always worked through a man.
era
And at that time, Joshua was the divine guidance to continue the journey to the promised land.
cuando ellos se
When they stopped back then, and Joshua said, "Sanctify yourself, for tomorrow the Lord will do wonders." Notice, there was a divine direction that the Hebrew people had to follow and had to hear those directions,
que Josué
those signs that
en el tiempo de Josué
in the time of Joshua and in the time of Moses were being shown
por medio
by God through his prophets.
es como cuando uno
It is like when you
toma una carretera
take a man-made road, a shortcut, let us say,
paran a veces para
which people sometimes make to shorten the way,
establecidos por la
but those are not established by the government law,
carreteras
and they are improvised roads
para cruzar
made to cut across from one place to another to get somewhere,
se llega por
which
la carretera
you reach by the main road established by the law.
paran esa carretera
And they make those roads.
y muchas veces
And many times
es mucho más
it is a
corto,
much shorter stretch,
mucho peligro.
but there are many dangers.
Y recuerdo
And I remember one time
estábamos
when we were going somewhere,
yo le decía
and I said to Brother William,
por acá
"Look, this way is closer."
y me dice
And he tells me,
no, vete por
"No, go on the main road."
y ahí me estuvo
And he was telling me
estas cosas
certain things
correspondientes al programa divino.
that pertain to the divine program.
Entendí, comprendí
And
muchas
there
cosas.
I understood, comprehended many things, which he was showing me
Esa forma sencilla
in that simple way
de las carreteras.
of the roads. And one of them was,
Cuando uno
look, when you go on or take a road
que sea
that is a shortcut
y hecha por el
and made
ser humano,
by the human being to get to a certain place,
ahí hay
there
cierto
are
peligro
certain dangers.
y no hay señales para prevenir ese
And there are no signs to prevent those dangers. For example,
por la carretera.
when you are on the main road,
Hay señales que dicen
there are signs that say stop,
otras que dicen
others that say
una flecha que hay
an arrow that there is a sharp turn going somewhere else,
flecha
another
o un desvío,
that is an arrow or a detour with a lot of curves,
otra que dice
another one that says yield, meaning yield the right of way,
las cuales
and a countless signs which are not
atajos
there on the roads that are shortcuts. And when you are on those shortcuts where there is supposed to be a stop sign, since there is no traffic sign there, you can keep going. And there can be a cliff ahead. And then you fall in the cliff when you were supposed to stop. Same thing is when there is a sharp curve. And just as when you're in the main road, well, you see the signs and you take precaution, knowing, understanding that that sign indicates that there is a sharp curve. It can be either way, left or right, and you proceed carefully. But on those roads that are temporary, that sign isn't there, and there's a sharp curve that is approaching soon, and you're speeding and you don't brake. And you might continue going straight and hit a tree, or you don't see it if it's nighttime, or there might be a cliff. Notice, all of those things, those signs are needed in the divine program, so that you don't get ahead of yourself and don't stumble on the way toward the promised land. Because when you have to stop, when the pillar of fire stops, there's already a stop sign and you have to stop. You cannot continue because you do not know the way. Just like those who take the shortcut don't know the way, they are fumbling. They know that by taking that road, they were told they could get to a certain place. But they are fumbling, looking for the way. If there is a curve, if there is a speed bump, if there is a hill, and then a steep slope, see? Since there are no signs and they don't know the way, they are not familiarized with the way. There aren't any traffic signs to guide them safely to their destination. Well, they can make many mistakes and they can even lose their life, both the driver and the people in the car. In other words, the responsibility of a driver who has a passenger in that car that he's driving, going on that road, taking shortcuts to get to the place, he is responsible for those who are in the car, when he could just go in the main road, where all the traffic signs are. Does it take a bit longer? Well, it's better to follow the laws and traffic signs and arrive safely. That is also how it is in the divine program. And that is how it was in the time of Moses when they left toward the promised land. And each minister is responsible for leading his people, who God has given him to pastor. He has to lead them on the main road with the signs that God already has to show his people through a prophet to take them to those promises that he has for the time in which that minister and that congregation has been given to live. And so it is with all congregations. And in our time, the minister is also responsible, not taking them through a shortcut where they can lose their lives. That is, life in the spiritual realm, which is the last death that took place back then, before coming out of Egypt in that deliverance. Physical death was the last death, and now is the spiritual death, and then death in the lake of fire. In other words, we have to be very careful not to lead the people through shortcuts. That is why in each age and in each dispensation, God had messengers, prophets, to lead the people to the promises that he has for each time. The road that leads us to the promised land is the title that we can give this simple chat, in which we see that God always has an order for everything, and how in this simple way we can show how God also works in the program that he is carrying out. May God bless you and may God keep you all.